Learn the most empowering hiring techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with your host, Rick Girard.
All right. Do you even care about having the strongest people in the right seats? Now, if you don't, you should. And here's why. Companies that focus on hiring the strongest people outperform their competitors significantly by a factor of at least 3x, equating to a 682% increase in revenue, according to my friend Jack Daly. Now, what constitutes the strongest people is not skills or historical background. The strongest people align with the mission, purpose, and values of the company first. Skills can be taught, but changing how a person naturally operates is virtually impossible. And the reason for almost every bad hire your company has made. I'm Rick Girard, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. We help entrepreneurs and executives win the strongest people. We do so by sharing insights from top performing rebel entrepreneurs, game changers, and industry leaders. Like our guest today, Miss Melissa Ortiz. Melissa is the CEO of Activate Human Capital Group. Now, Melissa is laser focused on improving employee retention by matching the right people to the right seats and measurably improving employee engagement. Her focus area is talent optimization, and her why is better work, better world. Now, Melissa helps clients discover that talent optimization happens at every level. It's about understanding where you want to go and then aligning your talent strategy with your business strategy to get you there. Now, when Melissa's not working with her team or clients, you can find her on her fifth generation family farm in Northern California or running a swim team for 100 local kids aged 5 to 18, which is what makes Melissa the perfect expert for today's topic. Melissa, welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show today.
Howdy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. So you and I are both EOS champions. We both kind of play in that world.
I love that sandbox.
We set this up as we're talking about setting expectations to get the right people in the right seat. And so let's talk a little bit about what you see in your business that's the main problem that companies face.
It's us, Rick. It's us. We're the problem. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. All
You're
of
the
our
problem?
visionaries, all of our CEOs, we are terrible at setting expectations because we're typically the type that see an opportunity and chase it. And we expect just by nature that everyone around us will do the same. So we just want to put a person in a seat and we want to point them at a problem and have them go solve it. And it turns out that is not a recipe for success of onboarding a great person, keeping them, even if we do get the right fit culturally.
I was going to say shame on you. It's not me, it's you, but you're right. It's me too. Let's break this down a little bit. Setting expectations is something that I've worked really hard at trying to do better at in understanding whether or not, actually understanding who the person is and whether or not I might be able to benefit them before understanding whether or not they can do the job. Which is a weird way of looking at it. But the truth is, for me, it's if I understand what it is that a person wants and it aligns with what my expectations are, then it makes it easier. So maybe I reverse engineered it.
Maybe a little bit. I think one of the things, if other people are in the world of EOS prescribes, EOS is the entrepreneurial operating system, if that's new for you. And in that world, whether you're paying to work with an integrator, an implementer or not, one of the tools in that space is called the people analyzer. And it's trying to align, do people have the right core values that will make them successful? And do they get the role, want the role, and have capacity to do the role? And unfortunately, that just isn't enough in my experience. And partially it's because we haven't taken the time often to stop, especially if this is a rehire, right? We've lost a person either through our choice or theirs, and we're trying to refill a position. We often don't take a moment to stop and reset and say to ourselves, why are we hiring for this role? What is the actual business reason? What is the benefit to the organization that this role will bring? What are the measurables? And has the role changed at all since we hired for it last time? And last time could have been, 15 days ago, or it could have been 15 years ago, depending on our longevity of employee experience. But every time it's due for a reset of who's the ideal person, what does the role demand, so that then it's a whole lot easier. While our organization may not have changed culturally, the seat may have changed a bit. And I think we have time to refresh on that.
There's a lot to unpack there, right? So let's talk about the GWC piece. I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs, one of the challenges that I've seen is that we tend to look at things of, especially if it's a refill, oh crap, I have an open seat. I need to get it filled. There's a lot of talking yourself into things that happens during that process. You just want to eliminate that pain. When we talk about GWC, which is the get it, want it, have the capacity to do the work, which is what you had just brought up earlier. The want it piece is something that we overlook. Do they really want and are they going to thrive in our environment? Is it truly what they desire? Or are they just looking
Wanting to
at
be
you as,
employed.
yeah, or are they looking at you as a stop on the way to their destination to some other place that's going to pay them what they want to make?
So I have an interesting story on that point for you. When I was finishing my master's degree at Texas A&M in business, I applied for a job at Gallup, and it was basically a talent optimization consultant because
Mhm.
I was so infatuated with the job description and the work that I was like, I want this job. And the recruiter called me and said, we actually took you out of the hiring pool because MBAs want too much money. And I said, wait, time out. I don't think you understand. This is the job that I want. And so I ended up taking the lowest paying job out of my entire MBA class, much to the chagrin of the counseling or in career services office because they rank those things. But it was the job I wanted. And so when you bring up that want it role, it's not always it's not always about the money, it's not always about the benefits. If they want the role more than any of the other pieces, you have a really awesome candidate on your hand because they know who they are and what they want clearly enough to make some other compromises. And not that we should
You
under people or anything, but
you just hit the nail on the head in something is that's another form of compensation, quite frankly, because I come across people all day long that are getting paid very, very well at a company, but they're miserable. They hate the environment. They're just not growing. They're not doing the work that they want to do. They're just not fulfilled. Throughout my career as a headhunter, I've placed hundreds of people that have taken massive salary cuts in exchange to go work at another company that fulfills all those other criteria that they're really desiring.
purpose is a piece of compensation. I love that. I haven't heard that before, but that's so true in what I've seen.
Funny because I did a talk a few week or last week talking about other forms of compensation. Whenever I talk to candidates and we talk about their why are they open to looking at something potentially stronger? Why are they moving? It's rarely the money, unless somebody's just grossly underpaid. But it's usually something like, well, I had somebody say to me one time, I'm ready to grow and I have no place to grow. In order for me to grow in this company, somebody's got to die above me. These people have all been here for 20, 30 years. When nobody's dying,
Yeah. I
that's a
work with
really,
I do some work with school districts, Rick, and I had one principal say to me something so in line with this comment. She said, we're all in the business of developing people, and sometimes we develop them beyond our ability to keep them. And I
yeah,
think if we take that view, she took it from a view of an employer and of her students, right? Hopefully she graduates them out, but
yeah.
also her employees. She only has so many admin roles. So if they want to go higher than a teacher, there's only so many seats that are ever going to open up. And she said, but God, they become my best recruiters. So if I'm encouraging them to continue learning and growing, and this was just a tour of duty along their whole career, I'm okay with that. And I just thought it was such a lovely acceptance of what she was really dealing with anyway, that it made her such a great leader in that organization.
That is super cool. All right, you're listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. I'm your host, Rick Gerard. And for our podcast listeners, we're going to take a quick educational moment from our sponsors.
Hey, everybody. Got a quick question for you. Is your job easy, stress free, and full of rainbows and sunshine every single day? Yeah, I'd say that's a big fat no. Hi, I'm David Noe, host of Speakeasy HR, presented by Payroll Partners, and proud to be part of the Work Defined community. Take a step down into my Speakeasy live on LinkedIn and YouTube, where we tackle HR and business challenges through raw, uncut, unfiltered conversations. This is HR like you've never heard it before. Bold, real, and full of practical takeaways. Real guests, bold insights, authentic conversations that drive change. Catch every episode on demand through your favorite podcast platform or all the content at speakeasyhr.com.
Hey, I'm digging in deeper with our guest, Melissa Ortiz. She's the CEO of Activate Human Capital Group. And we're talking about setting expectations before you hire. We just talked a little bit about the problem, and now we're going to delve into how do we do it? If you and I are the problem, us being, visionaries, and we expect people to do it. So, how do we actually set clear expectations before we even start the interviewing and hiring process?
So I use a tool with my clients I call role review. And what it does is it takes, and you certainly don't need any fancy facilitation for this. It's basically saying to clients and to my own team, what are the core buckets of work this person will be doing? What's the role? What in its essence, if you could boil it down to a sentence, what does this person do? What does this role
Yeah.
do? Then what are the 3 to 5 major buckets of work they will be accomplishing? And where do I want them spending their time? And how do I want them perceiving their importance through those 3 to 5 buckets? Do you rank those? And then they add up to 100% of their time and 100% of the importance of the role. And then from there, in each of those 5 buckets, we dive into the details of, okay, what are the tasks? What are the activities that'll happen in each bucket? And then you can rank how much time each of those activities to make up 100% of that bucket should take. And in a one pager, you can define what the person's doing, how they will win. We can prioritize what we're going to onboard first, pair them up with the people who will teach them that. And it's such a great, succinct way to get your head and theirs aligned on what the expectation is.
What you're doing is essentially creating a syllabus for somebody to be successful. That's what your job description should be, is essentially the syllabus for when you join our company, here's what to expect. Now, one of the things that I actually like to do is break it down into 30, 60, 90-day expectations. I think
Yes,
the same thing. I think we talked about that too. So
totally.
let's give somebody a measurable outcome in 30, 60, and 90 days by which you can say, okay, 30 days, you're going to do X and we're going to see these results. And they have to be obtainable, of course. But to say in your first 30 days, you're going to come on and you're going to sell $1 million in product, not going to happen, right?
Probably. But
But
what does a win look like, right? What are the measurements? How will we both know that you've gotten there?
yeah,
And then we can get to your 60-day wins and your 90-day wins. And then we'll keep hopefully on a 90-day rhythm because people tend to have 90-day brains. They don't have 12-month brains.
nope.
Our attention span tends to be shorter than that. But I love that, if we get that right, then those define our metrics.
I think I have a 90-minute brain. I don't even know if I have 90 days. So let's break down the first 30 because this is kind of interesting. I get a lot of questions sometimes around, well, okay, so how do I map out what somebody's going to do in the first 30?
It's a great start. If you have done something like getting clear on the role, I liked what you said in terms of the expectation of the role. When we're putting together job descriptions, I like to say, here's what you're going to give, here's what you're going to get, and here are our expectations. And then when you get beyond the job description into the role, then we get into that kind of role review where we've got the core purpose, the buckets, and the activities. And
Got it.
I think it's so easy once we've done that to just put a 30, a 60, or a 90 next to all of those activities, because then you're trying there will be some activities that are foundational. There will be
Yep.
some that build on each other. And so it'll be pretty natural. And some of them they won't maybe get until 6 months in. And so you can start to put a timeline on those and then say, okay, and a person who's going to train you, because it's probably not going to be me on all of these, because you don't want me training you on all of those items because
Yeah.
my calendar's too full. You'll never get my time. But it's like, okay, Becky's going to train you on this, and Andrew's going to train you on this. And these are your people. Get in their calendar for this window to make sure you've hit these milestones, which
Yep.
it just creates a roadmap that's basically all bullet points because no one wants to read a job description that's 4 pages long. They just don't. If you
Well,
can't
nobody,
break it down to bullet points, they're not going to get there.
well, the other thing is nobody wants to read a job description that's a copy and paste of somebody else's job description either. That's all about them. You bring up a really interesting point. You have an internal job description, but then the one that most people see is an out for it's actually a marketing
It
doc.
is a marketing document.
Thank you. Can you imagine if your marketing team put out the same content as like your job descriptions? Do you
They're
think
so
they would get
bad.
fired very quickly or what?
If we could just get HR people to write more compelling job descriptions that people went, oh my God, that's me. I want that job. That's what
Yeah.
happened to me at Gallup. I'm such a poster child for leaning into a single job description and going, no, I don't think you understand. I want this job. The way you wrote this, like that's me.
By the way,
And
that is the worst recruiter I've ever heard that would call you and say, "I passed on you because MBAs want too much money."
think about this, they're based in Omaha, it's very Midwestern, and
I
it
don't care, it's
totally
still a bad recruiter. Bad recruiter. He or she might have been a wonderful person, but that's bad recruiting. That's
better
assumptive.
with
Oh
reverse
my,
psychology, right? Maybe it was just setting my expectations low.
could be, could be. Or maybe they were the most brilliant. I don't know. Well, they did call you though, right? Or did you call them to follow
Nope.
up?
They called me to follow up
Okay.
and just said, "Hey, hate to let you down." I was like, "No, you don't get to let me down. This is it. This is the one." I also begged my way into Texas A&M because my scores weren't quite high enough, but I really, really wanted to go to their MBA program. And
There's a lot of begging going on there, Melissa.
you got to beg for it. If you want it, you got to go after it, Rick. It's
That's
just how
true.
life
That's
works.
true. That's what we do. We talked about get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it. Walk me through how you do this pre-hire.
So there are several tools on the market that can help you do this. I tend to favor predictive index because it's quick and easy to gain alignment on. And the reason I like it is I'll often walk into a hiring situation where the leadership team has different views, or maybe the key stakeholders, depending if it's not a leadership team hire, have different views on what their goals are, what their demands are of the role. And so PI does a really good job of helping us align those expectations. So then whoever's doing the recruiting, whether it's an internal or external recruiter, has the best probability of success because there's one target rather than multiple, five sometimes different targets. And you're never going to hit five targets with one candidate. So a lot of that is getting clear. A lot of it is also getting clear on what are the real demands of a role. So I was helping a client the other day with a quality control specialist. If you don't have high attention to detail and you are put in a quality control role, you will never succeed. You will be a nightmare in terms of post production returns. And so that's the one non-negotiable. So not only will we define like the entire ideal candidate profile, but we'll also get clear on what is the most non-negotiable item. If it's sales, maybe it's
So you're
proactivity.
talking about critical competencies that basically
Yeah.
are attached to whatever job it is. I mean, I would agree with you. Accountant or quality control, you definitely need to be a very detail-oriented person.
Yes.
CEO of company, not so much.
Not so much. And then that's not the only metric, right? These is a
Yeah,
three-legged stool. You mentioned, the piece that we put too much emphasis on is the background, the briefcase, the resume, not enough on cultural aspect, not enough on aptitudes, because we can't train culture or aptitude. Skills we can train all day.
100% spot on. So this is where you and I differ a little bit on the assessments and PI, is
Bring
that
it.
the one challenge that I have with a lot of them is that number one, you can't really differentiate a couple things from an assessment. You can understand whether or not somebody kind of possesses those core competencies or they fit into those boxes, but you can never understand whether or not somebody's a high performer. And the other
Correct.
thing is that your company is unique and it's different than other companies. And the data set that gets fed into a lot of those things that roles get attached to it, because successful person in this type of role fits this category. Not true with every company. Because,
That's why I totally reject the like, here's a salesperson, here's an accountant. I never use the presets because I had an example the other day. I had a client I was helping hire a CFO, and the typical CFO profile is one thing, and they were telling me they wanted something very different. And there were very good reasons for that. Like,
yeah,
this is why we go through this process. Because if we had hired you a typical CFO, they had washed out just like the last one. And so you've got to meet them where they are. I think that's such a critical point as I see a lot of people use PI and any of these tools wrong because they're just like rinse and repeat. This is a salesperson. This is an admin. No, we have to go
yeah.
deeper than that.
I just feel like it's irresponsible to do. There's good aspects to everything. They also do give you the ability to understand how to best communicate with somebody. I love that. I love to be able to look at somebody's
Like a
there's
behavioral report of
actually
any type.
yeah, yeah, there was this tool that I was using for a little while. It's called Crystal Knows, and it sits on top of LinkedIn.
It's great.
And it actually tells you how to best message that person, how to write your messaging. I love that. I could just plug that into ChatGPT and boom, I'm off to the races. Something that I'm going to most likely get a pretty high response rate to.
Yes. Yeah. PI actually has one of those that plugs in for management while you're in a Zoom meeting with an employee. It's giving you reminders on how to communicate with them effectively because I don't care what assessment you use, Strengths Finder, Predictive Index, DISC, Myers-Briggs, pick one that works for your company that really resonates with you and use that. Because especially with its shorter tenure we're seeing among employees, we need to get up to speed faster. We need to communicate more efficiently. And that will help us with retention and performance.
See, I feel like when you actually have a path for somebody, again, most people get kind of itchy and leave because they don't see a path anywhere. They just see, well, I'm doing this work. Where am I going to go? Most of the time, I think your principle that you had mentioned hit the nail on the head. Your job is to help them get to where they want to go in their life. And if it means helping them out into a different job somewhere else, then great, or moving them up within your organization. I've had a couple CEOs that are really, really good at boomerang hires. So they'll get people that'll come back to them after they've left after 4 or 5 years and say, "This was the best environment I ever worked at. Can you use me at this level now?" Which is
Such
amazing.
a compliment. Yeah.
And by the way, so many companies get that wrong. Again, as a recruiter, my life was pretty easy, and then all I had to do was just get somebody at the right time.
Yeah.
I
Timing
think
is everything. I tell my kids all the time. And it's
yeah.
interesting you bring that up because the other thing I've been, the drum I've been beating is that not only do employees leave because they're looking for growth opportunities, they also suck at asking for them. They suck at advocating for themselves. So as much as they're willing to job hop, they're going to find the same problems elsewhere. So we have to teach people to own their own engagement, ask for what they need, ask for growth opportunities, lean in because they're not doing that enough. And a manager can't do that for you. If you're only going to be with that company for 2 years, they probably aren't going to invest at the level that you're hoping for. And so we have to help set that expectation again, back to expectations of, hey, when you get here, I need you to ask. I need you to own your own engagement. Tell me when there's a problem because I'm not just going to intuitively know as your manager.
A couple weeks ago, we had a CEO named Brian who was on here, and he said that what they do is all their managers are charged with every quarter. They have what's called a red light, green light meeting with their employees. Basically, what they call their engagement, they're a tour duty, and then they have this conversation about where are we with you? Is it a green light or a red light?
Well, while Rick's gone, I will take this moment to encourage you to look a little more deeply into your hiring process because I think this is such an important time. In the last 10 years, hiring processes have come so far. There are so many insurance policies you can get into making sure you've got the right person in the right seat that's going to fit your culture, fit the role. There are some great tools. Rick has one, Predictive Index is another, but doing things the old school way isn't efficient anymore. And so I hope you will use this as an incentive to try something new. Maybe try getting a little clearer as you go to hire someone into what works, what are the demands, what are your expectations? Because if you aren't clear on that, you better believe they cannot be clear on those things. In our employee engagement survey that we run for clients, the number one survey item is the expectations of my job are clear to me. And if we can't get those things right, then no one can win. We can't win in the marketplace. This employee can't win in the role, and they certainly can't win you over as an employer to help them along in their career path. So while we're still waiting for Rick, I guess I'll cover the key takeaways. Just some things you can plug in to the business today. And let's start with the first one. The first one I think is clear is kind. To be unclear is to be unkind. And it's a whole lot more profitable and efficient if employees know what they're supposed to be working on, if they know how to win. The next one is that people want to know how to win in their roles. Nobody wants to come to work and suck at work. They want to win. And so we have to slow down enough to take the time to spell it out for the expectations, for the situation that the business is in today. And then the third one is just take the time to level up your hiring process because it will pay dividends. He's back.
Oh my God, you carried me. Thank you.
I didn't get, I waited a little longer than I should have, but tech happens.
We'll take it. We'll take it. Yeah, nothing better than like the blue screen of death all of a sudden hit me in the middle of a stream. Perfect. Well, you know what? Shoot, we're getting actually pretty close on time. So, what would be 2 or 3 key takeaways you can give the audience, Melissa? They can plug into the business today.
So was just kind of working through those. The first one is to be clear. Clear is kind. And the way I think it actually resonates better with most entrepreneurs is to be unclear, is to be unkind. We
I
all take
agree.
such good care of our employees, but often we don't do the basics of getting crystal clear on what our expectations are of them and teaching them how to win. And if we slow down enough to get clear on the win in today's environment, in today's business, we're giving them a roadmap to success. And we're also making a whole lot better use of our financial resources, payroll, benefits, and taxes. So those are some key pieces. And I think
Yeah.
the other one is it's time to level up your hiring processes. Our processes have changed. There are better insurance policies. There are better ways to sniff out what Rick is doing with his team is such a great example of how do we find the right culture fit? What I'm doing with PI, how do we find the right person that fits in that seat who wants to do that kind of work and is naturally motivated to chase the type of problems, because we're all chasing problems every day that you want them chasing. And there's just so much
Yeah.
better we can do than we were doing 10 or 15 years ago in the human resources space. So that's my 2 cents.
I love it. All right, that's so perfect. Your point about to have clear expectations is kind. To not have anything, you can expect failure, right? And so why keep setting people up to fail? Even if it's a simple job, you got to clearly define it. Taking out the trash. You have to take out 42 trash cans a night. Not that difficult, right?
And
Are-
one of my rules of thumb is no one wants to suck at work. No one shows up at work wanting to suck.
No,
Help
no.
them succeed. Help them lay the groundwork, the roadmap, and find their paths to success, even if it is the most basic role in the organization. There's still pride to be had.
Amen, sister. Melissa, thanks so much for your time investment today. And I want to welcome you to the Higher Power Radio community. Now, what would be the best way in which members of the audience can find you, find your company, all that good stuff?
Sure. Best opportunity is probably our website, activatehcg.com, or my email address is mortiz, MORTIZ, at activatehcg.com. Look forward to continuing the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for tuning in this week's episode of Higher Power Radio. A quick thanks to our team, Brian Colburn, Andrea Ballin, and Ayla Gerard. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe, review, and share. Thank you for carrying me, Melissa. We're listening, and we want to continue to bring valuable content to you week after week. You can join the Higher Power Radio community at Higher, H-I-R-E, Power, P-O-W-E-R, radio, R-A-D-I-O.com, or you can drop me an email at rick@intertrue.ai. I'm your host, Rick Gerard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power Radio. Catch our LinkedIn Live show every Tuesday at noon, or download the podcast on iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate you joining us on Higher Power Radio with your guide to hiring success, Rick Gerard.